Week 8. Couple big games. Pick 3. First one.
Love them.
Number 20 Texas travels to number 11 Oklahoma State. This game will be 2:30 on ABC. And Texas is currently a 6-point favorite. 6.5-point favorite in Stillwater. Whoa.
I've thought about this, and aside from someone knowing more about Spencer Sanders than I do or what I've seen, I think this line is absurd. And I feel like by the time the game kicks off, that has to change massively. But I could be wrong.
From everything I've been told, like he's good to go. So I know Oklahoma State, they're coming off that loss to TCU. Texas coming off surviving, right, against Iowa State. I think Sanders is plenty healthy. I think he's going to play. I think the real question is, can Oklahoma State get any impact from that running game, right, against that Texas defensive line? Oklahoma State's running game, it hasn't been good enough. I mean, it hasn't. Now, maybe they'll find some more success throwing the football anyways because of what Texas's defense does well, but you still got to be able to run it a little bit, Ted. I mean, or else you're really putting yourself in a bad spot as an offense.
No, I agree with that. And I guess maybe one of the things is, if Sanders plays but isn't as healthy as they need him to be, how effective is he going to be as a runner? Because he creates a lot of chaos there on defenses, both in the passing game and in the running game on some of those things where he's factored in. And if he's not able to be a factor in the run game, that will make it really difficult on Oklahoma State. So yeah, it definitely has been disappointing. I thought the running game was going to be really good this year, but I still think I think there's definitely ways to run the ball against Texas, and going right at the teeth of their defense. That interior is probably not the best way, but I don't think their edge guys are all that good. And I don't think they tackle all that well necessarily on the perimeter. So I think there's some yards to be had against Texas, but Oklahoma State's going to have to be really dialed in to be able to do it. And I do think that the health for Spencer Sanders could factor into the running game for sure.
Yeah, in Oklahoma State's defense, they got to show up, right? And I know they're not as good as the group last year. I get it. But they got to play good football for them to win this game. And, I mean, Texas is going to move the ball, right? You look at how that offense is playing right now with Ewers and all the weapons, right? Bijan, Worthy, Sanders, Whittington. Like, they got guys. But Oklahoma State's defense, they've got to force Texas to kick some field goals in this game because that group's going to move the ball, right? Between the 20s, they're going to move it. But can they, and I hate to use the term bend but not break, but that's kind of what Oklahoma State needs to do in this game. They need to buckle down in the red zone. They need to force Texas to kick some field goals if they want to win this football game. But that has not exactly been the strength of Oklahoma State's defense so far this season, but it needs to be on Saturday if they want to get this win.
Well, here, to me, I think this is the biggest factor or thing to look at in this game. And I do agree with you on that. Like, get off the field, just don't let them in the end zone. Get off the field. Texas is going to make plays. We know that, right? With the skill group that they've got, they're going to make some plays. Just don't let them be plays that turn your lights out. But here's the thing. Oklahoma State, this is the toughest game that Texas will have had by a long shot, other than the Alabama game. But even with that game, here's the thing. Because was the Iowa State game, was that an 11 a.m. kick? It was,
yeah.
Right? So you're on the road against Iowa State, who...
No. That game was in Austin.
Oh, it was in Austin? Okay, why do I keep thinking that game was in Iowa State for some reason? but which proves my point even more. An Iowa State team that's winless in conference. You played West Virginia at home. Even the Alabama game, you're at home with the crowd. Like, that atmosphere was fantastic. You play Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl, but we don't have our quarterback. They're going into a damn hornet's nest with Oklahoma State being ranked number 11 in the country. This is the first massive test for Quinn Ewers. Everything else for him has been fairly easy as far as the atmosphere surrounding the game. This is the biggest test they will have faced, and really, it's not even close. You know what it's like right there on those sidelines at Oklahoma State. That place doesn't hold 100,000 people, but it gets loud. It's going to be a big time environment because, Oklahoma State fans, that football team, they lost to TCU, but we all know how good that TCU team is on the road, went to overtime. This is a big test for Texas away from their place. And I frankly, I know they're a 6-point dog, 6.5-point dog. I think Oklahoma State wins the football game.
I'm not sure if Oklahoma State's going to win, but I know this. If you're giving me 6.5 points, I'm taking them. Are you kidding me? And I do think, Oklahoma State's defense, that defensive line, especially those edge guys, that's the strength of that team. Those guys need this. They need to step up. They need to make they need to have some game-changing plays in this game. Whether it's Colin Oliver, Brock Martin, whoever. Those guys, they got to make some game-changing plays in this one. And we'll see. But, I'm excited for that game. I can't wait to watch that one.
No, it's going to be fantastic.
All right. At the same time as that game, you can flip it over to Fox, where you'll see number 9 UCLA taking on number 10 Oregon. Oregon is currently a 6-point favorite at home there in Eugene. And I'll admit it, Bo Nix has been really good lately for Oregon.
Yep.
He's been really good. Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been even better for UCLA. But both guys, they've been really, really good. So I feel like someone's going to really make a mistake, right? I'm not sure which quarterback it's going to be, but there's going to be a critical quarterback mistake in this game. I feel like both guys are due. But, Ted, both of these teams, it's about running the rock. Both top 20 in rushing offense. I think Oregon's 10. I like Charbonnet for UCLA a little more than I like Bucky Irving for Oregon, but both guys are really good, and these run games are fun to watch. And the best thing about them, physical style from both of these teams. This is going to be a fun game.
Nope. I totally agree. I think quarterback play is going to be absolutely critical. DTR has been fantastic. What he brings in the running game is excellent as well. UCLA's offense gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so, but defensively, they're pretty good too. They got some guys across that line of scrimmage and in that front seven. I've been impressed with them. But yeah, Oregon, the atmosphere is going to be incredible. They're a tough football team. I think UCLA wins it though. I do.
You and I are high on UCLA.
I know. Maybe I'm
ever since we laid side by side, not directly next to each other, but in our full-size beds. What was that? Fort Worth, and watched UCLA together. We've been high on the Bruins.
Yep, they're good. They got some dudes now. That team, they look legit. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's not like they're just, running some Chip Kelly offense that nobody knows how to defend. It's like in your face football. Physical running game, physical defensive front seven. They got some big dudes on a bunch of different positions on that team. Give me UCLA. And, maybe it's not fair, and I know he's been good, but I still don't trust Bo Nix for whatever reason.
That's fair. We've got a large body of work that says, hey, don't trust this guy when you're playing good teams. But I think everyone's expecting a lot of points in this game, and they should be. I think this is going to be a shootout, and it may come down to we're focused on those running games, right? It may come down to who can make a few big plays in the passing game,
Sure.
whether that's Jake Bobo for UCLA or Troy Franklin for Oregon or whoever. Who knows? But that could be the difference
Well,
in
you
this
know what I
one.
say? If you think a game is going to be incredibly close and you can't pick it, I typically the deciding factor is special teams. You look at Tennessee, Alabama, the try to pick up that punt, missed a field goal late, Alabama loses the game. Right? If games are that close, like the deciding factor a lot of times happens in special teams. And I know nothing about either one of these teams' special teams units.
That's fair. That's more than fair. But I do think it's going to be a close football game. If I had to choose, I'd take those points, right? I think it's going to be field goal type football game. So I'd probably take UCLA in the 6, but hopefully it just delivers, right? Because this feels like a game that's going to be really, really good. And the Pac-12 needs it to be good because, it feels like the marquee game of the year for the Pac-12 conference so far. And I'm hoping it delivers. All right,
That
last
one
game.
and the one they had last week, that was a pretty good one too.
I know, man. It will be really hard to live up to what we got from UCLA and Utah, but this game, for whatever reason, maybe it's because of how the season's kind of gone for Utah. This one feels bigger to me.
Yeah.
Does it? Am I wrong there?
Well, they're both top 10. I
Yeah,
know
I mean,
USC was Utah 20 or something like that
yeah,
in that game. So just like ranking wise, it is for sure.
yeah.
And
It feels.
I believe the winner of this game has a really good chance to make college football playoff.
I Are people just going to forget what happened in week 1 to Oregon? I guess. I mean, if they run the table and they're a one-loss Pac-12 champ, they've got a great chance.
Yeah.
Especially with what the Big 12 feels like it's about to do to itself.
Yeah. But you may be right. Like, well, maybe it's just if UCLA wins. I don't know, but can you overcome that one loss? Here's the thing. It was like they have not looked the same way since then. That was to the reigning national champ, basically a home game for them. Your head coach's first game out. Like, I think if they really want to, they could look past it, but I don't know. You bring up a good point.
I just think that when you look at the landscape of college football right now, a one-loss Michigan with their only loss being to Ohio State is in over one-loss Oregon. And I think whether it's, Georgia or Tennessee, right, coming out of the SEC East, if one of those teams only has one loss and they don't play in the SEC championship game, I'm thinking either one of those scenarios, that team goes instead of Oregon, because a lot of people are like, hey, we've already seen what it looks like when Oregon plays an elite team.
All very true. Here's the one thing that I'll push back on. I wish it was about putting the 4 best teams in to see who wins it. But it's obvious, even with some of the stuff that we've seen recently go on, they are they need the West Coast offense, or a West Coast audience rather, to be engaged in what's happening in college football. And if you just have 2 Big Ten teams, like, you already capture that audience. If it's Ohio State or if it's Michigan, you already capture the SEC, no matter who's in the thing. That's the one reason that I think that they could overlook something like that. But we'll just have to wait and see.
I don't know if you heard, but 3 SEC teams are getting in anyways. I don't even know why we're talking about a Pac-12 team. I'm joking, but no. I would assume the Pac-12 would like UCLA to win this game, but I'm really just hoping it's a good one. And it feels like it's going to be. Autzen, never been. Heard great things. So that's a tough environment there for Chip Kelly and the Bruins. All right, last game. Number 17, Kansas State travels to Fort Worth to take on number 8, TCU. This game will be at 7 p.m. on FS1 somehow, and TCU is a 3.5-point favorite. And Ted, I'm interested to get your thought on this. I think this is a tough spot for TCU, right? You're coming off back-to-back grinds, right? Tough game in Lawrence, right? Emotional game. That was a wild environment, right? Remember, game day was there, the whole thing. You're able to get that win. Then you have the double overtime game against Oklahoma State. I mean, you had to fight and claw your way back, down 14 in the fourth quarter, and then win it in overtime. And all of a sudden, a recharged Kansas State is coming to town, coming off a bye.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an ideal situation for the Horned Frogs.
It's really not. And here's the thing with me. All right, we know exactly what Kansas State is going to try and do in this football game. They've tried to do it to Oklahoma for a decade. They're going to slow it down. They're going to grind it out. They're going to be super smart and conservative with the football. They're going to have a physical, nasty run game, tough run game, stress your defense, keep your offense on the sideline, out of rhythm. And they're going to play good, solid defense. They're going to make you earn absolutely everything that you do. And then at the end of the day, you're going to look back and they're going to have won the special teams battle as well. And all that stuff travels really well on the road, right? They're not going to make Adrian Martinez have to do anything incredible. And, Max Duggan, I think, has been excellent. But this is the type of game where you're used to going up and down the football field and you're not out there a lot. Time of possession is just ticking away in Kansas State's favor. And you feel like you got to go out there and make something happen and press, and you make a mistake. There's a lot of reasons to think Kansas State has a chance to go in there and win this football game.
Yeah. And so I talked to Adrian Martinez earlier this week. I kind of asked him what was something he thought the offense as a whole for Kansas State could improve upon moving forward this season. And he mentioned, like, the first thing with no hesitation is, like, be more aggressive. So I'm kind of interested to see what that may look like.
That means just run it a little bit harder,
Yeah,
just like,
that's kind of what it's like. More aggressive. You mean just run it more, or no?
Like,
But
be more aggressive when you're running the football with it in your hands. That's
but it is. I'm really excited to watch Kansas State's defense go against that high-powered offense from TCU. Right. I think Kansas State, Iowa State's playing really, really good defense. I think Kansas State's right up there in the discussion for the best defense in the conference. And I know Quentin Johnston has been the story lately for TCU. He's been fantastic these last couple games. But I really think when you go back and you look at the second half of that win against Oklahoma State, the biggest difference was they could run the football with Kendre Miller. They got the run game going, and everything kind of built off of that. So that run game for TCU, I think it's essential in this one. And especially, like, if Kansas State wants to shorten the game, so be it. You can't get too caught up in that. Like Garrett Riley, he can't get away from the run, thinking, like, getting too nervous. Hey, we got to go score. We got to go score. Because when you're playing Kansas State, like, that's what you're thinking on the sideline. You're like, we got to get out there. We got to make a play. We're only going to have the ball 9 times. It does mess with you a little bit, but I think this is going to be a fun football game. Right. I think this is going to come down to the last couple of possessions in the fourth quarter. And I will not be surprised at all when Kansas State wins on Saturday. It just feels maybe it's just setting up too perfectly for them, but I don't know. It just feels like a Kansas State game where, they're going to push TCU's defense around, and the game is going to be, it's not even going to last 3 hours, and they're going to win. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you're TCU and you walk out of it. It's like, what the hell just happened? Like, is it the second half coming up, or no? That it's over, buddy. Yeah, this does feel like a really good spot for Kansas State. TCU also, man. Like, hey, top 10? Been a while since they've been ranked that high. Does some of that start to factor in a little bit? Now, I've seen nothing like that. I feel like this is a laser focused football team. And here's the thing though. Quentin Johnston, Savion Williams, you're never out of it whenever you've got those guys to throw to. You are never out of it. And last week kind of proved exactly that. You just start throwing the ball up to number one and let's see what happens. So incredibly tight. I'm going to lean TCU
to win. I'm with you.
Win.
I think the game being there in Fort Worth, like that's a big advantage as well. Like being at home is a big advantage. I would never bet on this football game, like ever.
Right.
But TCU's got it rolling, man. I just think it's a really tough spot. Kansas State coming off the bye.
Part of me feels like I'm leaning towards TCU winning a tight one, but I feel like the other scenario is not Kansas State winning a tight one. It's Kansas State winning fairly comfortably.
Like Kansas State by 17.
Yeah, something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like once you get TCU behind and predictable and where they're pressing, I don't know, but that's what you love is games where you're not sure exactly what's going to happen. And we saw the atmosphere at TCU Fort Worth. It was fantastic for that OU game. Night game down there. It's going to be bumping. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun watch.